I'm so excited to chat with Zangden Lhamo on the Awakened Feminine podcast today. Zangden is a master yoga teacher, sound healer, and founder of the Yogini. And I know she has so much love and wisdom to share with us today. She's joining me from Queensland in Australia. Welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thanks for having me here, Kaki. It's wonderful.
I'm so excited for our conversation because I know there is a lot to explore and we're just going to go free flow today. So just wherever the conversation takes us. And I love those conversations. But before we get started, I always love to ask my guests this question. And it's, what is your definition of an awakened feminine?
A woman that is not afraid to be authentically herself. Without questioning if she's doing the right thing, without questioning herself even, to really be fully in the power that whatever she decides to do, however she decides to look, her response to things is her truth without trying to do it for somebody else other than herself.
I love that definition. Thank you for sharing that with us. And
pleasure.
It's just so important for us, especially as women, to just really learn about what it means to be ourselves, because there's so much noise out there in the world to tell us what we should look like, what we should be, how we should act. So that's a beautiful, beautiful definition. So Zangden, I really want to dive into, more about you. I know you used to be a photographer. I was on Facebook recently and I saw this really sexy photo of you with your camera. It's like, oh my gosh, she's like so amazing. Anyway, and now you are yoga teacher. You are, you're in the, you might need to talk about the lineage because I'm not like 100% sure how it all works with Buddhism. You're a sound healer, you've got all these things that you do now, which is very different from being a photographer. But again, there's still that thread of creativity and expression, right? So can you share with us why you kind of changed in your career and why you do what you do?
Sure. So the original authentic me is the spiritual side that does the yoga and all of that sort of thing. So that's been there all my life. I first did yoga when I was 14 and first discovered yoga, like the yogic traditions, when I was around 14. So that became very, that was always something that was there for me. It was a spiritual path. The other things evolved. The photography happened by accident. So I didn't say, I want to be a photographer, I'm going to be a photographer. It came about, I was actually an artist. I did paint and I did a lot of commission work and things like that and had some little exhibitions. And I started taking photographs for my paintings, like subject matter. And the response to the photographs was really amazing. Like, it was like, what's going on here? People were more interested in the photographs that I took for the paintings than the paintings. So, and then those people started asking me to do photography work for them. So it went from there. Someone said to me, you can't be taken seriously if you don't have a real camera. So I bought a real camera and the rest was history. I did it for 10 years and did some really amazing things with it. I allowed it to flow. So I'm very much a person that flows. I don't specifically always set my mind out to what I'm going to do or be. I allow. And I went with it, and then I just had enough. I just had enough of it. I do like to do it occasionally. I've got some people I love to work with, and I do like to have fun with it. But I think it became too much of a job, and I didn't have any fun anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, totally get that. Yeah. Because I've got a girlfriend who's really good at making cakes. And I said to her, why don't you make it a business, right? And she's like, but then it won't be fun. because she does it for pleasure. Yeah. So
it's a very fine line.
It is.
I think that's also getting back to the authenticity is I didn't kind of realize at the time that I was allowing myself to be caught up in photography that wasn't really aligning with me. And, if I had have possibly stayed true to my passion of what I wanted the photography to be, which I'm doing now, it could have, I probably would have continued to do it. I stopped for about 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. It's kind of finding that realignment. And then, because sometimes we might like, you might like doing something, but then you're not, like you're saying, you weren't in alignment. But now that you found your alignment, you're like, okay, we can go back and do it again. Yeah. So that's really cool. Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught off current, like with influences, like you were saying, influences from media, from magazines, from how we're supposed to do different things, or, being offered certain things that seem good at the time, so you go with it. And it's not until you're in it that you realize you probably should never have got caught up in that, or it's not in alignment.
Yeah. Can you share with us what photography in alignment looks like for Zangden?
Okay. Okay. So photography for Zangden is, for me, I love people. So I do love photographing people very much. And I like to photograph people in a very beautiful way. So I like to be able to capture the person's essence, the person's beauty, and to do that in a creative setting. So I have had a lot of fun in the past with Photoshop and things like that, creating scenes with clients. But it's, you can get sort of very caught up in, so I'm not so much a photographer that likes to photograph weddings. I don't really like event photography. Like I got caught up a lot in event photography, and it's not something I really attune to. I prefer something that really brings something out of a person in a more intimate way, one-on-one.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Now I want to ask you more about your yoga practice and your sound healing, all the spiritual things that you do, because I go on your website and I know you've got so many things and offerings that you do and teach people. And you said you started yoga at 14. So can you share a bit about that journey from being that person that started yoga at 14? And I know even me doing yoga probably like 16, 17 years ago, it wasn't it's not like now where it's like, oh, everyone, it's so cool to do yoga. It was kind of like, oh, you're a weird person. You're doing yoga. Right?
That's absolutely true. That is absolutely true. I was one of the weird people.
Yeah.
I was a weird child. And I somehow would always I was drawn to things that were a little bit different. So I think I loved spirituality since I can ever remember, and I was very interested in Egyptology and mythology and all those things. And I got involved with I started working part-time in a news agency when I was 14, and I bought a book on the Upanishads there. And that was when I really got interested. So my interest in yoga wasn't the asana. My interest in yoga was the philosophy behind it, the actual spiritual teachings of it. And that has continued always with me, and it's never enough. It's like it's so vast and so huge. But that was the start. And then I did start doing asana around the same time, because I then looked for it, and there wasn't a lot around. So it was mainly doing it at home with a book, or there was TV. There was a woman called Swami Saraswati, who some people remember from the 70s, who had a TV program that she used to do the yoga. So I would do the asana with her. Yeah. And it's quite different to the yoga in studios now too. So the traditional yoga that was done is very different. Yeah.
Yeah. I find it so fascinating that, from the age 14, you were interested in the theory and all the can't think of the word, but the spiritual side of things rather than the philosophical side of things rather than yoga now really, if you go to the studios, is really about the movement part. Right. But I know that, I was into Kundalini. I was looking into Kundalini yoga a bit, and I was reading a book, and there's so much technology, so much, the spiritual philosophies and everything behind, which makes so much sense about how the whole universe and how everything works. Yeah. So that, so you started at 14, you were interested in all that. Then when did you start going, oh, I actually want to teach this and I want to open my own studio and have my life be yoga?
Okay, that's very interesting. And this is where I really would love to see other women step up, because I didn't. So I know very much what it's like to toe the line, or to be, told that you need to make a living, you need to have a real job, you shouldn't waste your money on courses. I've very much been in that position, and I always had an idea that I would love to teach yoga, that I would love to be more involved with it. But I got caught up in the usual, household duties, being a stepmother, being a mother to my parents, being, a wife, and working as a pastry cook in a shop, in a bakery. And that went on for a really long time. That was a big part of my life. While on the side, I was painting, doing my own research into spiritual things, which of course we didn't have the internet then. So it was going to actually libraries, going to bookshops, trying to find spiritual books, which was kind of a bit of an adventure on its own back then. It wasn't just like click, 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 punch it in. You had to really source things out in a big way. So I was very blessed, and I knew then that was what I was meant to do. Through the photography, I did a lot of work with some yoga teachers, different yoga teachers, and one of them, Emmanuel Brown, she was amazing, still is amazing teacher, and I did photography for her studio, and she was starting up a yoga teacher training. So we did a little bit of a deal. I did some videos for her, video work and photography, and she offered the teacher training. And that was it. I just took to it like it was something that I was really meant to do, and have just pursued it with manic proportions. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, because you're initiated into Tibetan Buddhism.
Yes.
And there's lots of different lineages. Do you mind talking a bit about that journey? Because, I know your name, quote, unquote, is Helen, right? Your real name, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, your legal name is, but now you go by Zangden. So can you share a bit about how that journey went and how you found Buddhism?
Yes, certainly. I've always been interested also in Tibetan culture. So it was a goal or dream of mine to travel to Tibet, always. And the dream came true in 2017, I think, 2018. My husband and I went to China and Tibet, and it was amazing. I loved it. It was incredible experience. Came home. That was the end of that. I thought, okay, I wanted to do that. I've done it. That was it. Then my husband wanted to go back, and asked me would I go back and take our son with us. So within 18 months, I was back in Tibet. This time we went in through Nepal, and I had some really interesting experiences there that I didn't have the first time. When we were landing in the plane, I started to hear the monks chanting just in the air. It was in the air. I could hear it.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow. And I said to my husband, can you hear that? And he had no idea what I was talking about. So I heard that the whole time we were there. We were there for 3 weeks. And during that time, we traveled to Tibet, the base camp of Everest in Tibet. And so to the Tibetans, she's a goddess, Chumalongma. And when we were there, I wasn't very well at that stage. I developed some kind of, it wasn't altitude sickness. I was fine. It was just like a flu. Everyone on the trip had it. And we were in this little guest house. It's at this monastery, Ronbuk, which is the highest monastery in the world. And we stayed there, and I went to get my gloves. I had mittens on, but it was freezing, like really, really freezing, because it was end of October, early November. It was actually the last trip that they were taking people there because it was going to close down for winter. Went to get my gloves, and you had to walk across a dirt courtyard and up some concrete step to get into the dormitories. So I went by myself. Everyone else was still in the little tea house. And when I stepped up on the concrete ledge to go into the dormitory, I tripped. And I was falling towards an upturned stool that had been turned upside down because the legs were metal and they were rotten. And I could see the leg of the stool coming towards my heart. And it was like slow motion. It was just like you see in movies. It was very slow motion. I was going towards it. And I mentally thought, this is it. I'm going to die here. This is where I'm dying. And something pulled me back.
Wow.
Next thing, I was back on my feet. There was a young Tibetan man in the courtyard that saw it, and he was like absolutely stunned. We couldn't speak, obviously, because he could speak English, but he just looked at me and was like, like absolutely shocked. And I just was like, looked at him and was like, well, somehow I'm back standing. I don't know what he saw, if he saw anything, I don't know. And I continued. Now, I couldn't talk about that experience for like a month. I didn't tell anybody. I couldn't even verbalize it. But I knew something happened there. And I knew something happened to me. Like I was a very different person. Wow. In that instance, I just felt it. And so when, cut the story short, when we came back to Australia, there were other things that happened, but that was the main thing. When we came back to Australia, I really involved myself with studying Vajrayana, which is Tibetan Buddhism, and also the Bon tradition, which is the Shamanic Tibetan Buddhism. And consequently, I did a lot of different initiations and transmissions into different practices. I did the green Tara practice for like a year because I felt that it was Tara that actually had saved me that day. And then I had the opportunity to do the initiation into the Zangden lineage and receive the spiritual name and its tantric vows. And, so that's how I got the name.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was just
amazing journey with that. Yeah.
I'm just like on the edge of my seat listening to your story. Wow, that is
really, and even when I got back to Nepal, like we went from Tibet, we went back to Nepal because I have friends there, and they met up with us, and they looked at me and they were like, "What happened to you there?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And they said, "You look different but amazing. Like, you know, something had happened to my energy there.
Wow.
Some kind of, I don't know. I mean, I'm the same person, but it was very different, very. And ever I spoke about Tibet for like, that was in 2018, I think. For like, it's probably only the last sort of year or whatever I can talk about it without crying, without tears. I just would be overwhelmed with tears.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing and beautiful, and
very, very beautiful. Very beautiful.
So you said you were a different person, and you weren't, you know, when your friend said, what did you, and you weren't sure. Can you verbalize it now? Like what was a thing that really changed after that experience, or is it still kind of like a bit of a mystery?
I've thought of many things that could have happened, but I'm trying not to read into it because I really don't know. I do believe that there was like an awakening there, like some kind of an awakening, because I all of a sudden felt really wise. Like I've always been interested in study and always followed those things, but I felt naturally much more conductive to it. And I felt that things had opened up. It was like some kind of a doors had flung open.
Yeah.
There. Yeah. Through that sort of that experience of like almost being killed and not being killed.
Yeah.
And the resignation of that had done something to me.
Wow. Yeah. That's just such
That's the only thing I can think.
Yeah, such a beautiful story.
And sometimes even after it, like I would, you know, when I came back to Australia, and for a long time, I was sort of thinking, you know, as I was walking around, I'd be like, am I really dead? And this is some weird, you know, parallel life that I'm living. Did I actually die there? Or part of myself died there?
Yeah.
There was a part of me died there.
Yeah. Yeah. What about your husband? Did he notice anything different?
Yes and no. It's hard to say. Because he definitely noticed that I changed. Yes.
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 Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely noticed that I changed because it was a lot of things in my life accelerated.
Wow.
Yeah, really accelerated.
Are you able to share maybe something that really accelerated just to...
Okay. Oh, wow. So many things. I think that, I mean, anyone that has known me for a long time must wonder what the hell happened to me, because within the last, say, 7 years since I started teaching, and then the experience in Tibet, things have just been like, with my spiritual practices, what I'm doing, what I'm experiencing, what I'm teaching, and the evolution of that has been rapid in terms of like becoming, you know, I did the Sattva teacher training, 300 hours, and then I did the masters. That happening, the study with the Tibetan Buddhism, I'm the only person in Australia that is given permission to teach Ligmincha meditation, which is the Bon tradition meditation, as a course. So things have just weird things. Like it's just like, oh, I'm doing this now. This is happening. This is happening. This is happening. You know, and it's all very fast. You know, whereas you know it's like my reality's really sped up more than other people's for the time, you know, that I can see. I know people that have done, when I was doing the 300 teacher training, so I did the 300 teacher training plus the masters in less time than they've done the 200.
Wow.
Because it's like a ravenous time thing. And I feel that's what's happening to me. And I often will say, you know, I don't have time for this. This has just got to happen now.
Yeah. Wow. That's so cool. Can I ask you, you were saying that, oh, it was after that experience, it was like, oh, now I'm doing this, now I'm doing this.
Mm.
Is it guidance, or does it just kind of appear in front of you, or do you kind of get the guidance?
It comes through me.
Yeah.
So it's not me doing it. It's not me doing it. I mean, I'm sort of being instructed on some level to do it. So yeah, it's not like, because sometimes I think, oh wow, what's going on? But then it just comes through, and it's like, this has got to be done. This is like mission number whatever. This is your next mission.
Yeah.
So it's not like that I want to do it for my purpose, because I mean, I could retire and just enjoy whatever. I don't know. It's like it's more that it's absolute devotional service.
Yeah.
That's how it feels.
Yeah. And is there a need, is there a level of trust that you need, because you get it, and obviously you need to actually do the thing,
Yes.
So do you ever go get the information downloaded and you're like, nope, I'm not doing it?
Yes, I had a very interesting experience recently, that sometimes how the ego can get in the way. Right. So I do trust, because it's showing me, how it works, how this works. But also there are times when the ego comes in, and the ego will get an idea and wants it to play out a certain way. So I was going to do this retreat, 3-day retreat, and it started out a silent retreat. It went out in, I think, November last year, and I had 8 people sign up within 48 hours. So I only wanted 10. So that was, I thought, I only got 2 more. The retreat was this year. That's really good. So this is what I'm meant to do. Then all of a sudden, everything started to go wrong. The floods came, because the retreat was in northern New South Wales. The floods came. It was really devastating. Retreat had to be postponed. The new date didn't work for most of the people. They pulled out. So that was, refunding them, trying to find new people to come. It just then the chef pulled out. It got more and more difficult. And I'm like, what's going on here? This is ridiculous. This is crazy. It's all set to go. Then I realized, only last week actually, that it's too much for me on my own. And something has been trying to show me that yes, I could do it, but I might not be very well when I'm finished. So it was going to be 4 days or 3 days, full days. I was doing everything, and which I was very enthusiastic about. But the reality is that I'm mid-60s and I'm very fit and well. But I mean, even a young person doing a retreat like that would really whack them out. So I think someone was saying to me, you're needed for other things. That's just not, and there's too much energy involved in that. Yeah. So I cancelled it.
Yeah.
And I feel a lot better.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, I think sometimes, it's, and it was like a little bit maybe about the ego. It was like what I wanted to do. And it's like, no, you might want to do it, but you're not going to do it.
Yeah. I know, you never win.
What you want is not always what you're meant to be doing. Lesson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What you want is not always what you're meant to be doing.
Yeah. Your ego is like, I want this, so you're not letting go. And then and the universe is like, God, whatever your beliefs are, saying.
And because the more you push, the more walls come up.
Yeah.
It's like, can't you understand? Stop. Change direction.
And you're like, nope.
No.
I'm gonna persevere.
I'm meant to be doing this. Yeah.
And fight to the end.
Yeah, I'm like, everything else has been so easy. Why is this so hard? And then I would sort of say, well, maybe I just need to push harder. No.
Yeah.
No, it was Crazy.
I love that reminder for everyone that's
Yes,
listening or watching this right now that, you know, the more we push, the further things go away. Because I'm going
absolutely.
through a bit of that at the moment for me, where I was doing a lot and pushing, you know, but
Yes,
this last week I've been like, you know what, I'm just gonna just take a break and everything's just like flowing in like
yes,
what is happening
yes.
when you do nothing. Like I'm
When you do
literally
nothing. Yeah.
doing like very bare minimum. Yeah, if I'm inspired, then I go do it. If I'm not, I'm just like whatever,
Yes.
you know. And it's just such a beautiful reminder to just allow yourself to just let go.
That's it. That's really it. You know, I had in my head that, you know, I really wanted to do this. It would be amazing for people because a lot of my students wanted it. They asked, you know, for an immersion of some kind. You know, we want to come away with you for a few days, really immerse ourselves in this. And so I decided to do it. But then it was dynamics of availabilities and you know, natural disasters and yeah, it was just it just went on and on and on and on and on and on. It's ridiculous. So like, okay, it's just a no. Sorry, you're
Yeah,
just getting little workshops for now.
yeah. And it's
No
okay.
one's having an immersion with me.
Not yet, anyway. Not
Not
yet.
yet.
Yeah,
Not yet. And if
not
I
yet.
do, there will be other people involved in it.
Yeah. And yeah, thank you for sharing, you know, that it's all about trusting and then discerning whether it is like actual guidance or whether it is your ego. Do you
Yes.
have a little bit of any tips or have you figured it out when it is from the ego or when you are really following your guidance? Do you have any tips for our listeners and
For
audience?
me personally, which I didn't listen to this time, but I find that if it's the ego, I feel a bit sick in the stomach.
Mm,
So if something's not working, then I feel like, I mean, I'm sure everybody knows it. You feel on some level that it's not working. And I feel it actually in the stomach. It's
mm,
like, or I wake up in the middle of the night with a little bit fear. So if you feel fear, it's also
mm,
ego.
yeah,
Because there's that, like, you know, because the ego doesn't know. It's, you know, it thinks it tells you it knows, but it doesn't know. So there's a fear involved and there's a sick feeling involved.
mm. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
And
that's for
hopefully,
me. I
yeah,
don't know about
yeah,
anybody else.
yeah. But I think for me, it's very similar. It's also, you know, like there's this
You know,
knowing
you do
already, like
know.
without even the
You
feelings, you
talk
just
over
know.
the voice of the ego talks over. It's louder. It's
Yeah,
louder. It's like, no, don't listen to that feeling in your stomach. Don't listen to that little voice in the back of your head. This is
yeah,
okay. This is going to work out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, it's similar to you. I do get the bodily sensations, but at the same time, you already know that it's your ego, but it's just
Yes.
your stubbornness and everything else. You're like, nope, not listening. I'm just listening to the
Absolutely
ego.
true. Stubbornness. It's the stubbornness, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's stubbornness. You just don't want to let go of the fact that it's not working out the way you want it to.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we've all had those
I'm
experiences.
sure. And probably will still continue to, I'm sure.
Yeah. But what I've learned, you know, people say this a lot, everything happens for you and not to you.
Yes.
So even though sometimes you do listen, or maybe a lot of times you listen to the ego, but it was also necessary for you
Yes.
to listen to your ego because you had to realize something or, you know, so there's a,
lesson in it.
yeah. So while sometimes we're like, oh, you know, I really need to learn about how to discern, then there's still that, okay, listen to the wrong voice, but I'll learn, you know, I know for next time kind of thing, right?
Exactly. I totally get that. I totally get that. That's so true.
Yeah.
It's true. Sometimes we just need to go through things. Sometimes, you know, there's some kind of karmic involvement as well. And that's, you know, we're behaving a certain way because of that.
Yeah. Let's talk about karmic involvement since you just mentioned that. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you mind sharing like a bit about, you know, what that means for people that may not really understand, like what, you know, you hear the word, oh, it's karma.
Yes.
But some people might not actually understand what it, you know, what it all means. Yeah.
Yeah. So karma is very misunderstood in the West and probably in the East as well nowadays, because it's kind of, you know, tainted with Western ideas and things. Karma just is. There is no good or bad karma. It's a cause and effect. So, you know, whatever is happened has a reactive effect or an effect of that happening, because we're in a physical universe. So it's a law. And so that's how it plays out. So, you know, I think through life, you know, if you do believe in reincarnation or things like that, that's what binds us here. So the only reason that we are still manifesting in a human form or any form that we may take with a consciousness is to eradicate this, what is called a debt, but it's really a rebalancing of the cause and effect, until we realize that we're not actually this separate being that we think we are. So we're all sort of thinking that we are a separate entity. Yeah. But of course we're not. We're just a facet of, you know, if you have a diamond, we're just a facet of a diamond, or, you know, we're just a wave in an ocean or a drop of water in a pond. We're not just that, we're the whole thing. But we're isolated thinking that we're separate. And this separateness then, we play out certain things that creates a bondage. And the bondage is what brings certain things into our life. Most people associate it with negative things, but it just is. It's just the way it is. Yeah. Because we're in this body and this is the experience. So we're meant to experience all things. We're meant to experience it.
Yeah, it's a universal law. Yes. Yeah. And I think in the West, especially when people say, oh, it's karma, it's also always associated with negative connotations.
It's always associated with payback.
Yeah, it's karma, you know, because you've done all these bad things. But like you say, it just is. And if you do good, you also get the karma, you know, coming from there as well. So, yeah.
So, you know, if we're loving towards people, then that love is also reciprocated, but that comes. And it's just the way that it is. It can be so far-reaching. Like that's what I've always found, that coming to the understanding of actually how far-reaching our actions can be. You know, we might do something that we consider to be just to one person, but it can affect generations. It can affect people very, very, very far and very distant. It can be huge.
Yeah, it's gonna be like say the, you know, cliche is like a ripple, right?
Yes.
Like
and turn into a tidal wave.
Yeah, and it is so true. It's like when you also do your own healings, you notice that things around you change. So if you do good, then you will see that, you know, the good comes to you. And if you do bad, you would see the same. So, thank you for explaining.
The play of energies. Play of energy is just energy, and then it's energy just works like that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So, and then you're like, you know, all the things we've talked about has been so amazing. And having gone through like all the things that you have gone through, you know, I want to ask you, is there anything that was really profound in your life that up. I mean, yes, there's your kind of awakening in the when you were in Tibet, but previous to that, was there anything like really profound that kind of set you on your path?
Oh, there's been so many things. Just trying to think of something very specific. I kind of was like born with that seeking.
Mm.
And I've often wondered, because I was premature baby, and my mother and I were told we would die. Like my mother was prepared to die, as a baby was going to die. So they induced me at 7 months. And I often wonder, knowing what I know now, that certain centres were open.
Mm.
They weren't properly developed as such. So I was still kind of very much attached to pre-birth place. Home.
Yeah.
And so that has always been with me. I've always felt home was somewhere else. And I felt that as a small child, it was very lucid. The material world was very lucid to me. And so I always was looking for how to connect to that home.
Mm.
That's the only rational thing I can think of, because I've always had it.
Yeah.
As soon as I could start to read or do anything, it was always, looking at, going into our encyclopedias and looking at spiritual things, even like, Christian religions, whatever, anything that was in any way spiritual.
Yeah. It's funny, like when you were talking before that you were into like all the Egyptian mythologies and all that. I'm the same. I've always had such a strong interest in like Greek mythology, Egyptian, like is there something that just draws me to mythology? And I've had it since young. So but
I'm sort of born with it. On some level, I think it's sort of like you don't know it until you first start to hear it, until someone tells you a mythological story.
Yeah.
And then it's like, something awakes in you.
Yeah.
And it's like, I remember at school, we had a priest that used to come and he would talk about, archaeology. He kind of made, the religion into the archaeological evidence. And that used to fascinate me. I would get very excited. And, I know the first time I ever heard the story of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, I was like, whoa, And the same thing with Egyptian things. The first time I ever heard of anything about ancient Egypt, it's like, very exciting.
Yeah.
Very exciting. You just want to know more and more and more.
Yeah.
It's like you're sucked into it.
Yes. And for me as well, Chinese mythology is another one that I'm really, I just, from young, I just love it. And after talking to you now, I'm like, I just want to go and get back into reading it. It's been a long time since I've actually read or looked at any mythological stories. So I just feel inspired to do that now.
Find some information in there that will awaken you. Things that you maybe missed when you were younger that you'd read and didn't quite understand.
Yeah. So I'm like, And also when you were saying before with going to the library, I was thinking, I was the same. Like, you had the Encyclopedia Britannicas, and I used to love going to the library, and I used to ask my mum, like, can you get me a set of encyclopedias? Because, it was exciting to have it, but now you have Google.
I know. We had encyclopedias. My mum and dad bought them for my sister. She was 7 years older than me. I don't think she ever looked at them, but I was always on the floor with the encyclopedias.
Yeah.
Yeah. And always the same volumes, because they had the myths and the legends and the art and the poetry and all that stuff.
Yeah. I want to ask you, because as you were talking, you said you kind of always had that seeking and you always felt everything was very lucid on earth. When did you accept? I guess, when did you kind of ground back down? Like, what was the thing that made you go, oh, this is home, and ground you back into, yeah, because you're like opposite. A lot of times people are the other way.
That's right. That's right. It's like it was really, to be grounded was huge for me, and it was something I wanted. I always wanted, because I knew that I felt because with that lucidity comes a neurosis. You know, you can be quite neurotic and very anxious because you're not grounded. You know, you don't have anything solid, so you don't really, everything like hits you like much more intensely. There's people that would know that are really kind of, you know. So I'd say probably in my 20s I started to become more grounded. I had a bad car accident when I was 38, and that kind of took me into a place where everything was, I was hit in the back of the head, and I think looking back, I think it affected my pineal and pituitary gland.
Yeah.
So I was like in a dark night of the soul, like for a very long time. All of the things that I loved and inspired me I couldn't feel anything. It was quite horrendous. It was really deep depression for a long time, and then slowly started to come back. But that was, I think, also very, as much as it was horrific, very grounding, because it gave me an insight into how a lot of people have to live. Those people that aren't connected to anything spiritual, that's how they live. And I realized how awful that was, and how sad it is. Yeah.
Wow.
It's like I had to feel that.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
And I'm just like looking at the time now. So I've got a couple of more questions before we wrap up. The first one is, you know, having gone through your journeys, amazing journey that you've had. And I know we just only touched on your journey, really. There's so much more there. What if you had to go back to a younger version of you? What's the advice that you would give yourself? What's that key piece of advice
to a younger person of me? I'd definitely not take myself seriously, because it's just a play, and I'm only here temporarily, and enjoy it. Don't get caught up in the details.
Yeah, that's great advice. Live in the moment, really, isn't it? Yeah.
Don't get caught up in all the stories and the details of things. Enjoy it and look at everything as a gift.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And lastly, what's setting your soul on fire at the moment?
Oh, wow. I think just everything I do. Like, I can't think of one particular thing. I just really love sharing with people and being able to help people with different, to learn techniques to overcome, whatever's going on for them, to live a more kind of a balanced life for themselves. So that sets me on fire. Yeah. I think that's probably, there's lots of little things going on, but that's my big thing. That's my big mission.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time today, Zangden. You've just been amazing, and, so much love and wisdom that you've shared with us. If people want to find out more about you and how, experience your magic and work with you, learn yoga from you and do healings with you, where should they go?
Okay, so I am available online for certain things through Zoom. So if anybody is interested, I have a Vedic meditation course that I do, and I can do that privately, that I do Zoom. There's also Tibetan meditation techniques that I can support people with and instruct them, also via Zoom. The yoga I have at my studio at Runaway Bay on the Gold Coast. So if anybody is in this area and they would like to experience that, They can connect with me through social media, Instagram, the Yogini 108, and on Facebook, the Yogini, and my website's the Yogini. So you just have to punch that in and that comes up, and all my events, workshops and things are on there. So if anybody wants anything in particular, either privately or as a group, then please feel free to contact me, and I'm quite happy to work things out for them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Zangden. It's been amazing.
Thank you.
I'll have all your details in the show notes so people can reach out to you. And yeah, thank you once again for this amazing conversation.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that will listen to this. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.